Okay, I've been remiss. I haven't been making videos for a while. It's partly I've got a very good excuse for not making videos for a while. So, but I don't know if I'm really allowed to announce why yet. So we'll just say I've got a good excuse. Okay, part of the reason is because I've been waiting for I've been waiting for some technology. So I'm hoping to have that delivered tomorrow, which should allow me to actually use the proper microphone for this sort of stuff. And because I'm using a camera to record this at the moment, I have a phone to record this at the moment. So we'll see how that goes. So I might have to carry on using this, but it works fine. But yeah. Anyway, so I thought I'd just carry on, try and pick up where we left off last time, which was I think like over a month ago now. There was some stuff that I really had to do, that I had to concentrate on, so I couldn't really make videos for a little while. So I thought I'd just pick up where I left off and just try. I have actually tried to make this video a couple of times. It ends up getting long each time. I just want to do a really short one, and it's about Hilbert. So I'm just going to try and keep it really, really short, and actually just keep it to the couple of quotes that I wanted to read out in this, with regards to this. So essentially, the main thing here is that in the last couple of videos I was talking about the whole thing of the paradox of analysis, and the whole thing of the Barber's paradox, Russell's paradox. Um, and just essentially the crisis that mathematics has kind of built itself up to towards the end of the 19th century. And one can really see how all this plays out in Hilbert. Hilbert was a David Hilbert was a German mathematician, um, and he was really influential in the early part of the 20th century. And part of his influence was sort of enacted in these programs and problems that he set and things like that. And really, you can really sort of tell the zeitgeist of the of that period from Hilbert. So although he was obviously a great mathematician in his own right. He's more remembered for these problems. One of the famous ones is the Riemann hypothesis that he's kind of proclaimed as sort of like the big mathematical question. And my work sort of very loosely, very closely sort of intersects with that. It's not quite there, and maybe one day I'll do a video on the Riemann hypothesis once I have my head wrapped around it myself properly. But he said of the Riemann hypothesis that if he sort of like did one of those things where he went to sleep for 100 years and woke up, the first thing he'd ask is has the Riemann hypothesis been solved, or has it been proven, I guess is the right word. Anyway, so Hilbert is kind of an interesting figure in that regard, and so Hilbert gives us a program for what we can do now once we've kind of figured out that we've kind of gotten ourselves into this mess of paradoxes. And so I thought I'd read three quotes from Hilbert, and actually maybe four quotes. So I did say I want to keep this video short, but essentially the sequence goes that the first one is from 1900, and the second one I'd like to read is from 1927, so just before the Great Depression, and then the third one is from 1956, and then I think I'd like to come back to the first one again, just to set up kind of where I'd like to go with all of this stuff. So I'm just going to start with the first one, and I'll sort of explain as we go. So the first one goes: an old mathematician said, "A mathematical theory is not to be considered complete until you have made it so clear that you can explain it to the first man whom you meet it on the street. This clearness and ease of comprehension, here insisted on for a mathematical theory, I should still more demand for a mathematical problem, if it is to be perfect. For what is clear and easily comprehended attracts. The complicated repels us." And so this sets up a nice sort of thing where it's a bit like Occam's razor, where we're looking for a simple explanation. We're looking for something that we can explain snappily. and that really, I mean, if one thinks of the industrialization of knowledge, that's what you essentially want. You want each one of those steps of the machine to be a simple, reproducible step that just runs. That's what you're looking for. So one can really see how that kind of sets us up for what kind of solutions we expect to be finding if our mathematical program is going to be successful. So the second quote, you'll kind of start to see that that one can see some problems have started manifesting itself. So this is now 1927. This is after the First World War, just before the Great Depression, and what's really kind of interesting about this quote is more just in how positive it is, and I use that word kind of advisedly. It's sort of the positive sense of it, and you'll see what I mean. But also this lays out the path. At least for the next couple of videos, of where some of the next couple of things we can look at, just to cover this sort of terrain and see what's going on there. So here we go. Mathematics is a presuppositionless science. To found it, I do not need God, as does Kronecker, or the assumption of a special faculty of our understanding attuned to the principle of mathematical induction, as does Poincaré, or the primal intuition of Brouwer, or, finally, as do Russell and Whitehead, axioms of infinity, reducibility, or completeness, which in fact are actual contextual assumptions that cannot be compensated for by consistency proofs. And so in the opening here, he kind of sets us up. He says mathematics is a presuppositionless science, and then he goes through all these lists of all these presuppositions other people take. And I thought it might be kind of useful just to actually just to spend a couple of videos just taking each one of these and just seeing what those propositions are. I must say, I know some of these better than others, so it'll be a bit of a research thing for me as well. But the whole thing that he's laying out here is that there's all these other things that come in that cannot be compensated for by consistency proofs, and these contextual assumptions that he doesn't want in mathematics. He wants to remove those contextual assumptions, and that's really the key to it, because he wants mathematics to be a presuppositionless science. So if we now skip ahead, spoilers, to 1956, I believe it's 1956. I'll speak under correction, but he says, in mathematics, as in any scientific research, we find two tendencies present. On the one hand, the tendency toward abstraction seeks to crystallize the logical relations inherent in the maze of material that is being studied, and to correlate the material in a systematic and orderly manner. On the other hand, the tendency toward intuitive understanding fosters a more immediate grasp of the object one studies, a live rapport with them, so to speak, which stresses the concrete meaning of their relations. So here we're really looking at these two conflicting sort of impulses. The one is the abstraction that seeks to crystallize the logical relation, and the other is the tendency towards intuitive understanding that fosters a more immediate grasp of the objects one studies. And this is really the tension. This is if one looks at the presuppositionalist science, that's the crystallized science, the one where you have these simple elements that click together into these preordained shapes. That's the crystallized logical maze of material, essentially. And then if one looks at these presuppositions, these contextual assumptions, you need the intuition to get past those contextual assumptions. There needs to be some snap of understanding, and you can't explain what that snap of understanding is. It needs to be an intuition. It's something which he now which he now says is necessary to come into a live rapport with the meaning. And this is quite important with the meaning. It's quite an important word to use in this context of mathematics, because if one looks to the previous ones, he wasn't really talking about meaning, because meaning involves presupposition. So one can see in this 1956 quote that there's something different going on here. Something has changed in his opinion, and we'll have a look and see what that was, because that's kind of a biggie. But I think I'll just finish this video off, because it's probably already run over. This one I've tried to make it a couple of times and it always runs over. So anyway, sorry. Anyway, so I just think I just try and read the last one quickly, and essentially, this one is back to 1900, and I think it gives us a better sort of grasp on what the real project is. Well, let's read it and we'll see. So, mathematical science is, in my opinion, an indivisible whole, an organism whose vitality is conditioned upon the connection of its parts. For with all the variety of mathematical knowledge, we are still clearly conscious of the similarity of the logical devices, the relationship of the ideas in mathematics as a whole, and the numerous analogies in its different departments. We also notice that the farther a mathematical theory is developed, the more harmoniously and uniformly does its construction proceed, and unsuspected relations are disclosed between hitherto separate branches of the science. So it happens that, with the extension of mathematics, its organic character is not lost, but only manifests itself more clearly. And so here we have a very different conception all of a sudden. Well, not all of a sudden, we're back to 1900 again. So this was always in there, this whole idea of mathematics as an organism that grows harmoniously. And really what we'll see is that, again, this is a conflict between these two, the crystallized notion of mathematics and the harmonious organic notion of mathematics. And when I say mathematics, I mean ideas in general. So here, I say mathematics. I'm not a mathematician by any stretch of the imagination. I enjoy thinking about these concepts. But essentially, these tensions exist in everything. And playing through how it played out, especially in this period in mathematics, and left us with where we are now. It's really useful to just go through it and just wrap one's head around what the real issues are here. And so the main thing is that, and what I'm going to claim here, that essentially what Hilbert was saying, or might have been thinking in the early part of the century, is that these conflicts was essentially not a conflict. That the organic nature of mathematics and thought and the crystallized nature of mathematics and thought were one and the same, and that one can get from the one to the other. And this is not true. And this is the main brilliant really thing that period in history. I mean, we know about the wars and everything, but really that discovery really set us up for all the good things and all the bad things that came after the wars. So from a historical and a sociological perspective, it's actually really fascinating how we got from where we were in the year 1900 to where we were in the year 1950. Really, really important for humanity. Like, and when I say humanity, I mean going all the way back to 100,000 years ago. You know, that it's So I don't want to exaggerate it, but I think it's impossible to really exaggerate just how important that succession of ideas are and were. So okay, let me just leave it there before I start getting too rambly. Okay, good. Have a good one. Cheers.